Galen Merrick Starkiller and both Ahsoka Tano utilize something with the lightsaber that is actually extremely rare and in some circles of Jedi looked down upon, that being the reversed-handed grip of the lightsaber itself. What makes this unique is not only its rarity, but also that both apprentices of Anakin Skywalker utilized this variant of lightsaber combat, with both of them having very similar and yet at the same time very different reasoning. So today, acolytes and students of the Force, welcome back to our expansive archives, and let us open up another holocron and discuss exactly why both Ahsoka Tano and Starkiller, students of Anakin, decided to use the reversed hand style grip, likely showing us and giving us insight into the very character of Anakin, as well as how he conducted the training of his two core apprentices. The reverse-handed grip actually originated from the fifth form of lightsaber combat, the same lightsaber form that Anakin Skywalker specialized in, as well as Darth Vader's preferred style in his more hybridized form. However, the reverse-handed grip is the more conventional use of Form 5, that being Shien, and Anakin Skywalker utilized the more dueling-centric form known as Gemso. So to get a more broad understanding, let's first analyze Shien Form 5. What's unique about this variant of lightsaber combat is it's one of the least used forms in all of Star Wars lore, which is interesting that Anakin would choose to teach his apprentices in this exact style. But as we'll explore a little later, this was actually quite the brilliant tactical move on behalf of Anakin. Shien was dubbed the Perseverance form by the Jedi of the Old Republic era that created it. Shien was described as being well adapted to guard against blaster fire as well as enemy strikes without compromising one's ability to launch powerful counterattacks. Shien worked best when countering attacks from multiple opponents and was typically less effective against a single adversary. Anakin Skywalker decided to teach Ahsoka Shien because of the nature of the war that they were currently fighting, with potentially hundreds of battle droids occupying a single portion of the battlefield that Ahsoka would likely be involved in. Therefore, Ahsoka needed to be trained on how to take out multiple enemies. Anakin also knew, though, that this could actually serve as an advantage in one-on-one lightsaber combat, contrary to what the original Old Republic Jedi that created the form believed. Anakin believed that because Shien was scarcely taught among the Jedi, as well as the Sith, that this could be used for both Ahsoka as well as Starkiller's advantage, as Jedi and Sith that came up against the form would be ill prepared for it. Much like Darth Vader to Sidious, Starkiller was specifically trained to hunt and kill Jedi, and to be the secret assassin of Lord Vader himself. Therefore, he decided to train his apprentice in a least popular style, an actually slightly different reason for why he decided to train Ahsoka in the form. Going back to Ahsoka briefly though, Shien users were also proficient in a maneuver referred to as the Barrier of Blade, which defended the user from blaster fire and redirected some of the incoming blasts. Shien deflection was another technique familiar to users of Form 5 variant, allowing practitioners to simultaneously deflect weapon fire and leap towards an opponent at the same time. However, Shien was not without its shortcomings though that Anakin Skywalker would identify and teach his apprentices how to counter. Anakin Skywalker was actually quite famous for hybridizing his form, especially as Darth Vader, as it's nearly impossible to break down a single form that Darth Vader prefers. Although Gemso is still its backbone, Darth Vader has a hybridized form and can switch between forms simultaneously and effortlessly. Many lightsaber masters had a massive critique of Shien, that being that it wasn't exceptionally maneuverable and it was difficult to mount a perfect offense against a single opponent. But this is where Anakin's training comes in. Ahsoka Tano is actually a wielder of both Shien as well as Ataru, Ataru being the more acrobatic form of lightsaber combat. Due to Ahsoka's smaller stature, she is able to use the sweeping movement of the reverse-handed grip, which again was looked down upon, as well as being exceptionally mobile thanks to Ataru, putting the two forms together to essentially make Ahsoka Tano a terror on the battlefield. If we look at Starkiller as compared to Ahsoka, they actually fight quite similarly. However, Starkiller is the more aggressive of the two by far. He is essentially the lightsaber form of Ahsoka Tano uncaged. Ahsoka is far more precise and reserved with the way that she duels, whereas Starkiller is unleashed and unleashed all of the time. But the reason that most Jedi Masters did not like Shien was because typically, it was not a form that leaned into aggression very often or the dark side itself. However, it was this implementation of the reverse grip that leaned more into this, as it indicated more of a show of aggression and readiness willingness to mount an offensive onslaught. Many individuals such as Dooku marked this as being unclean, and believed that a lightsaber should only be held a certain way, and holding the lightsaber in reverse is one of the least desirable ways to use it. Of course though, as we stated earlier, this meant that many of the Jedi and Sith alike were unprepared to meet a perfected version of this in combat. Many of the Jedi also criticized the reverse grip because they believed that it left the practitioner exposed to offensive attacks, and made defense much more difficult, which is a valid critique. It also goes against the very heart of Shien, which is a more defensively minded form. It is essentially countering what the form is meant to be, but again, it was Anakin forcing his apprentices to use other forms along with the reverse grip that made them so deadly, and allowed them to launch wide sweeping movements and attacks at a whim. Ahsoka Tano and Galen Marek are not reserved fighters, and they are clearly not defensive fighters either. This isn't to say that they can't launch a perfect defense, but this is clearly not where their form or their minds lie. Galen Marek was originally trained primarily in Form 5, which is all about creating your own openings, acting unpredictably, and keeping the opponent off balance. This also goes for Ahsoka. The reverse grip, despite the decreased versatility and possible health risks of introducing your forearm to your lightsaber while in open combat, especially against a superior opponent physically, helps by throwing this opponent off balance and preventing this. Given how rare this unorthodox grip within the form is, and since many that wielded this form died for it, what's important though is agility, something that both Galen Marek and Ahsoka had, and if you did lack this agility, the reverse grip was practically unusable. However, with individuals such as Galen Marek and Ahsoka, two lightsaber duelists that lacked a lot of experience, it was perfect at off-balancing a more prepared opponent, or a more experienced opponent. But then, why would Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader not actually use this form as well? The answer actually lies in the size of Anakin as well as Vader himself. Vader didn't use it because he wasn't agile enough. His entire combat style was focused around bringing his enormous physical strength to bear and working around his own limitations. But for someone like Starkiller or Ahsoka, designed specifically to kill Jedi or to face a lot of foes, it was perfect and worked very effectively. Later, Galen Marek would use the Ferocity form and pair this with his Shien, that of course being Juyo, with Ahsoka leaning more into Ataru, but still the staple of Shien remains in both of their forms. Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader did this because they stand against what is conventional. Anakin was anything but conventional among the masters, and I believe he actually trained Ahsoka in this way to prove a point, that just because training is conducted different from the older masters does not mean it does not work, or could even be superior. This is why Anakin and Dooku are such perfect follies to one another. Dooku believes in everything conventional, from his lightsaber form to how he conducts himself. Anakin, on the other hand, is brash and imperfect, and yet exceptionally powerful. This also perfectly sets up Darth Vader to hunt Jedi, as he knows them exceptionally well, but he also, as Anakin, fought different from most of them, and this would also directly tie in to why Galen Marek himself is so proficient to killing Jedi, even former council members. But my friends and acolytes, I hope this video and this holocron went a long way to explain why the reverse-handed style was looked down upon, but could work perfectly, especially if you're trained by Anakin or Vader. But acolytes, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on the reverse-handed style? As always, my friends, thank you so much for stopping by our archives and opening up yet another holocron. May the Force be with you always, and I hope that you're having a great day.